Welcome back to Mermaid Saga Anime Review Part 2. This I'm reviewing the last 7 episodes of the Mermaid Saga anime. Oh, and before I basically my thoughts on these episodes, I've decided for the OVAs, basically, that the series had, well, before the series, I'm going to review those when I talk about Reuniting Theater, whenever I get a chance to do that one. Yeah. So right now, let's talk about this particular set of episodes. Now, the first episode of these bunch is a standalone episode. The remaining 6 are all two-parters. Yep, all two-parters. First one's called The Bone Princess, which looks like takes place about a few hundred years prior to the series. How about Shogunate? Okay, yeah, so pretty much this is basically takes place in the 1600s, where we meet a girl, a 12-year-old girl, who's actually immortal. Well, turns out she previously died, then she was resurrected thanks to this thing called Harmon. Which I'm like, Harmon? Isn't that something for a different series? I think some kind of like magical stuff. Yeah, it was used to resurrect thanks to, of course, having mermaid liver. Yes, mermaid liver. And despite the fact it did successfully resurrect her, it caused her to unintentionally have a fetish obsession for eating liver from various different animals and people. Yep. And Yuta basically wanted to take her away from all the showbiz stuff. And, well, the girl ends up getting killed by the end of the story. And then she gets buried because, well, the priest basically won't bury himself. Like, and Yuta's like, no, you basically caused this whole thing to happen. I'm going to bury her because he had pretty much nothing to do with the conflict between him and the old man. Yeah. The episode itself was just okay. I like the era. It's fine. It's just, well, we're just going to find like one area, but it doesn't feel like major stake in this one. Yeah, that's pretty much what it was. The Last Face, a two-parter. Yes. Now, unlike other ones, basically, here's kind of the interesting thing about this one. After episode 8, there's the rest of the after that standalone episode with episode 7, the rest of the episodes take place all in modern day. There's like one flashback, but it ties into a story, but not where a whole episode is set basically there. Yeah. Yeah. This one basically involves a kid who's 10 years old and his mom, who basically they just happen to come across, and it turns out the mother has a dark secret. She's actually older than she looks. She's actually 20, supposed to be probably in her 50s, I'd say. She had her first son, yeah, she had another one, before this one, try to eat mermaid flesh. Didn't go too well, and they end up getting disfigured. Well, in the case of the son, he got like a mark on his shoulder, which is easily able to hide. Despite having the mark, he still ages. His mother, despite the fact doesn't really age at all, still like smoking hot for her age, and she got a mark on her face. And this whole two-parter is simply her trying to get the second son, which actually, you think it's her son, but actually it's her grandson. Yeah, and the grandmother tries to smuggle him away, but nope, doesn't work at all because he's brought right back thanks to just randomly run into the protagonist of the series. Excuse me, Yuta Mana. Yeah, that's what I kind of feel as though with this particular two-parter. They just stumbled on the situation, and they pretty much, well, kind of take on the lady, and it turns out that, of course, the guy who kidnapped him was actually his actual father. Yep, his actual father. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and also for some reason, Nuta, both same name father and son. Oh, and this whole thing started because the reason is because this older guy, basically, whose name's Yuta, when he was younger, his parents got divorced. The reason why is because apparently his mother was becoming very obsessive and scary and out of control that she probably need to put in they probably didn't say it, but she probably need to put in a mental institution because how insane this woman is. Instead, she tried to feed her son mermaid flesh. Where the heck she got it is never explained. Yeah, a lot of the time, basically, they just happen to have Murray Flesh in the episodes. It just happened to be in some storehouse someplace that these people just happen to randomly find. Where they get these particular things is never explained in the series. They just happen to have them for some reason, and apparently there's like several jars filled with Murray Flesh. Yeah, it's never really explained. So, first son doesn't like it, so he basically survives, no problem, despite the fact he's got a scar. The grandson tries to eat it, but Mana knocks it out of his hand. Of course, Mana, both in this one and the series finale, she is very much like tied up and nearly killed by the main woman, the main villain of the story. Yep, and eventually she is defeated, thanks to Yuta, and she basically later commits suicide, and well, the boy goes live with his actual father, and that's that. Because, well, that's the thing with this two-parter. It just feels as though that the main characters just having to stumble upon this one. Yep. Poison, The Promise Tomorrow. This was an interesting one. Especially since I heard Christopher Sabat's voice, despite the fact he's not credited for this particular two-parter. Yeah. Apparently 60 years prior to present day, apparently prior to World War II, Yuta just happened to come to this town and met, and sort of in a way became friendly with a woman named, I think her name is Now? New? Yeah, I think her name is New. This beautiful woman. Now, they're not attracted to each other, just basically very good friends. And she wants to go off with him, then basically be with her very, let's just say a guy who's actually in love with her. And she's in love with him, but she wants to be with Yuta for some reason. Yep. And she pretty much, like, hangs out with him for a while. The Errand Boy is there. Now, this is also the first time in the series that Yuta has actually ran into somebody he's actually run into years prior to the series. Yeah, it's the first and by far only time this is actually... They do this in the very next episode, but it was part of the actual plot. It wasn't like 60 years later, just happened to come across the same boy, though grown up. It's the first time ever in the series they did this. And it turns out they apparently think New actually disappeared. They think she died. Nope. Her former fiancé is keeping her captive in his mansion. Why? Because he wanted the mermaid ashes for some reason. Yes, they had this thing with mermaid ashes in this one and the previous one as well. There's an obsession toward that for some reason. And this one also involves the Red Valley, which is simply a field, a big field of red flowers. They're not roses per se. They're probably like, I'm not sure exactly what you described. It's probably like dandelions or whatever. Yeah, and apparently Yuta was supposed to meet her there at some point and supposed to get a signal. Oh yes, and she does go there, but she gets found out by her fiancé, who actually kills her. And then eventually he starts searching for the mermaid ashes to bring her back to life. He does eventually find it, takes a long freaking time to do it, and eventually finds it, and well, he also marries a wealthy daughter of a wealthy industrialist, and buys all the land around this one town. Why? Because they want to find he did, and he resurrected her, but she was a soulless creature. What happened to the woman is never... Yeah, the woman he actually did marry, not the woman he was supposed to marry, but the daughter of the wealthy industrialist. As far as I can tell, nothing happened with the character at all. They just basically mention her, and it's possible she may have died a few years prior to the series. It's never delved into at all. Oh yeah, and apparently he went to the construction business. Yes, the construction business. And he's another character Yuta met years prior, and of course they ran into him again. Yep, they kind of did the same next episode, but that was something else altogether. And, like, apparently anytime she tries to go out to the red field, she's basically forced to brought back. First, she's basically attacked by freaking dogs, and then pretty much one of the handlers tries to basically beat the crap out of her just for leaving the mansion. Now, as for the reason why that she basically is being kept there, because her former fiance thinks she's a soulless monster for some reason. Yeah, it's never thoroughly explained exactly why he does it for. And lucky enough, this is actually a pretty interesting little two-parter. When Yuta does run into the former Errand Boy, who's actually 60 years older, he's probably like in his 70s, I'd say, because he looked like, in the flashback they show of him, he looks like he's about 10, 12-ish. While in the case of New, she's probably about 15 at that point. I'd say about 15 because a lot of the young girls since me in this series are either 12, 15. That's pretty much how the character is. Yep. And Yuta does reunite with her at the end of the second part, per se. Yeah, they pretty much reunite. Also, she takes the guy who first attacked her. She hits him with a freaking rock. And then of course, she was saved by Mana, who basically runs after her, and she gets killed for saving her from her captives. And then they bury her, and then she digs herself out of her own grave. Yeah, this is by far the first and only time in the series that she's been buried alive. Yuta, it's happened a few times, but in the case of Mana, this is the first and only time in the series. Well, shown in the anime. I don't remember she did it in Mermaid's Gaze, per se, because it's been a little while since I've read it. And this is the first time she's married alive, and of course, she meets up with the guy. And is like, who is this filthy woman? Yeah, I wouldn't be filthy if your men hadn't killed me and buried me. And he's like, I wonder who Yuta is. And he's like, Yuta? How do you know that name? And of course, she gets cleaned up, get properly fed. And she tells us she's been traveling. She kind of basically implied she probably tells what Yuta's been up to since she's met him. Not prior to she met him, but after she met him. And apparently he does not want Yuta to reunite with New for some reason. Yes. Not thoroughly explain exactly why. And of course, they actually do get away from them again. And though now his guard basically is with him the whole time. I recognize his voice. This guy is Christopher Sabat. I recognize that voice anywhere, despite the fact he's not credited for this character. Yeah, I'll talk more about the voice credits later and how freaking bizarre this setup is. Yeah. And like they do chase after them. They get to the field. She reunites with Yuta briefly. Of course, she had also been stabbed with a freaking ice pick. Where the heck he took the time to grab that thing? Where and when he grabbed the thing, he just happened to have it in his freaking cane, and he gets stabbed with it. And basically, everyone thought she was going to stab Yuta, but no, she just basically hugs him, and then she dies right there in the field, and it's implied she's buried there. As for her former fiance, which she also attacked in this episode, yeah, he just basically gets chastised by her former errand boy, and that's it. And of course, Yuta and Mana walk off, and then we of course come to the final episode of the series, Mermaid. I think it's before. I think it's Mermaid Scar. Yeah, this one is a very creepy one. Like, oh my gosh, probably by far the most violent episode of the whole story depicted the whole series, because the series did tone down a lot of the violence from the manga, which was good. They also trimmed a lot of the nudity from the series, which that was interesting. Because if you ever read this woman's manga, Risenko Tagashi, she has the thing for frequently showing women in nude. Probably because she's a woman. I don't know why she does this for. I mean, the only series I've seen of it is probably Rama Half, Inuyasha, and of course Mermaid Saga did frequently the manga. The anime, I think it did it with a pilot episode, but after that, nope, nothing. Yeah. Now, as for this particular two-parter, yeah, this is actually the first time that Yuta and Mana had come across a boy. 2 years. Yeah, they come across him, run on a train, briefly, and then 2 years later, they run into him while they're working at a freaking construction of all things. Yeah, and I'll talk more about some of the various jobs they have over the course of the series, and sometimes they don't specifically say exactly where they live, or I'll talk about their travel in a minute. Yeah, it turns out the boy is actually evil. Yes. They find this out later, after he gave mermaid flesh to his former nanny who got engaged. Yes, and the woman who, basically reunited with his mother, turns out not his mother. Nope, not his mother. Yeah. Turns out it's a woman he just found in World War II. And he actually is someone who ate mermaid flesh, and he's still alive. Oh yeah, he also has a gun he basically took during World War II. And he also is the oldest character of the whole series. Despite having appearance of an 8-year-old, he's over 800 years old, which makes him older than Yuta. Apparently, if you look at Yuta in the action series itself, he looks like when he first ate Murray flesh, he must have been in his late teens when he took it because he looks quite older. I mean, he acts pretty mature for his age. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, Mana, of course, gets severely wounded in this episode, like more wounded than ever. Like first, she gets sliced up, and she gets tied with freaking barbed wire of all things. Yeah, she's captured by him, tied up with barbed wire. Eventually, she gets out of the shed she was in, runs a couple more seconds, like, "Hey, untie me, please. I need to get back to that boy." Yeah, and like his apparent mother basically got sliced by the former nanny, who, and of course, Yuta finds out this is the former nanny because of the engagement ring, which also acts like the way it looks in the anime. It kind of also acts like a laser pointer for some reason. Maybe because of the ruby, maybe because of the jewel and the diamond that probably gives out the whole laser feel. But that's what it looks like to me. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, is the kid dealt with at the very end? He kind of is, in a way. So, like, they eventually and of course Yuta, like my gosh, he probably like with Mana suffered the most wounds this episode. He got shot, they got sliced with a freaking axe, and he nearly lost an eye. But him and Mana were able to and he also basically after he pretty much think he killed them, he takes his fake mother, probably because he thinks he probably finds it useful, and burns down the house they were living in, and drives out in a nice sports car, which he wrecks because he has the appearance of an 8-year-old, and he probably has no idea how to drive a freaking car. And he crashes it, and that's the last see of the guy. Mana and Yuno basically on a cliffside, where basically Mana is waiting for him to revive. Of course, she's crying. And then she hears a heartbeat. He's alive. Yay! And then they walk off to someplace else. Oh, in case you're wondering, of course, this is actually the final story. Not for the anime, but this is also the final story that they actually have for the manga, because I'm not sure why that the series ended with this particular story. Because the big plot through the whole series was that they were frequently looking for more mermaids to cure their immortality. There might have been a couple reasons why. I highly doubt was low sales. If that was the case, why in the world did the writer keep it going for almost 10 years? My personal guess is she probably focused on other things. That's probably the reason why she ended it when she did. But yeah, the anime, you could definitely say it pretty much adapted almost the entire series, with the exception of like one story. But it kind of feels as though when you finish watching the series, you're like, man, that was an incomplete. That kind of felt like an incomplete story. It seems like you could tell more story here, but I think the only reason why the anime ended is because they probably pretty much almost run out of material to adapt. That's probably the reason why they ended at the 13 episodes. But yeah, final thoughts on the anime. It is a pretty decent anime for what it is, and it looks, I mean, appearance-wise, the anime does a fantastic job recapturing the art style of the writer of the series. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The stories themselves are a bit hit and miss here. Like, the first episode is probably by far one of the best episodes of the whole series. And surprisingly, if you look at most of the series, it's mostly a lot of two-parters. Now, 3 out of the 13 episodes are standalone episodes. It was 1, 6, and 7, while the rest of the series is all two-parters. Now, there could have been more potential for the series to last slightly longer, but my personal guess, I guess, is one of those series where the story is incomplete. That's just my opinion anyways. But at least you could say they kind of, adapted a lot of the manga, and they kind of finished it, per se, with the exception like one story. But that'll probably handle that in part 3, whenever I get a chance to do it. But as for the OVAs themselves, I'm going to review those when I'm going to talk about Ramek Theater, when I get a chance to talk about that series. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing I don't like about this particular series, it's not the storytelling. No, it's the voice credits, basically, for the series. Because it is quite difficult to find voice credits, basically, for certain characters. Now, as who dubbed this particular series, It is now the series was released by Gion. They're the ones who released the episodes themselves in the US. Yeah, they have the license to release it here. But as far as I can tell of who actually did the dubbing for the series, it's quite interesting. I mean, look at the dubcast. It could have been possibly, I would say, and this is my personal theory, I think it could have been a Viz Media dub. But it's not credited as that because Viz Media didn't release this thing here. They're not credited for the dub. And, like, some of the characters, like, do match basically who they're voiced, like, who they credited with a voice actor. The only one, basically, in my opinion, like I said before, my previous video, is the character Ren from the second and third episode of the series. Despite that credit me Stephanie Steve, it sounds nothing like her at all because I know her voice. Okay? And that actress, like, either one, this is probably early in her career, or two, she probably decided either they probably have somebody credited as Stephanie Steve, and even though Stephanie Steve probably didn't voice the character, because the character sounds nothing like her at all, because, well, her character's a little more chippy, a bit ditzy, but they're always usually very soft-spoken. This character is very loud, and sounds like a bit like a female version of Johnny on Bosch. That's just my opinion anyways. Yeah, but not much else to say about this particular anime. Now, despite the fact I was hoping to do a little bit more reviews for this particular series, but I rather just end it here for this particular one. This is probably by far my shortest review series I've actually done. Out of all my anime reviews so far, in the past 3 years of doing anime reviews, this is the shortest because of how short this anime is. 13 freaking episodes. You could say, oh, what about the series Hellsing? You did that for 2 videos. Well, because I was planning to do one more, which I haven't got back to that series yet. I might go back to that series eventually. Yes. So, that's it for this particular review. And as for reviews tonight, there's nothing really much else planned for time for videos wise. Tomorrow, expect to see a review for return to any Washer reviews tomorrow, okay? But do you see next view. Bye.